the 27-year-old WBO middleweight champion out of New York City's Harlem, born in South Carolina, and Lonnie Bradley ready to make a successful title defense. Well, Al, will be interesting to see how Bradley, who is trying to be an up-and-coming boxer, of course he has the championship, handles a veteran like Simon Brown, who knows all the tricks.
Well, you know, this is by far, I think, the most canny and savvy boxer that Lonnie Bradley has faced, and probably the best, even though he's already a champion. That cannot be said about Simon Brown.
Yeah, Simon Brown brings a wealth of experience into the ring. He's been in the ring with all sorts of champions and is contested for championships himself. What do you see for early from him?
Well, as you look at Simon Brown, you know that with all the experience, he's had all those fights. He's going for his 4th world title. He knows he needs to put pressure on Lonnie Bradley. He comes in off a terrific win over Glenwood Brown in his last match, and he is going to put pressure on Bradley from the get-go. Lonnie Bradley, on the other hand, will be dangerous to him early in this bout. He's a man who has a good right hand and has great movement, and early on in the bout could be a problem for Brown.
And Lonnie Bradley coming off a 12-round decision over Lonnie Beasley. We are set for our main event, the WBO Middleweight Championship. Lonnie Bradley defends his title against Simon Brown. For the introductions,
ladies and gentlemen, from the Reading Municipal Stadium in Reading, Pennsylvania, Arthur Palulo's Banner Promotions, in association with Budweiser, the undisputed king of beers, presents main event, Reading Rumble. Championship of the world. Your ring officials assigned by the World Boxing Organization, the President, Francisco Valcasel. Your attending supervisor, former light heavyweight champion of the world, Jose Torres. Judges at ringside are, from Bayamón, Puerto Rico, Ismael Quiñones Palu, from Aurora, Illinois, Gordon E. Volkman, and from Clarkston, Michigan, the dynamic Dale Grable. Your referee for this event, refereeing in his 61st World Championship fight, the fearless Frank Cappuccino. Introducing now the principals. First, in the blue corner to my left, wearing the black trunks with light gold and green trim. He hails from Clarendon, Jamaica, but now makes his home in Mount Airy, Maryland. He weighs in at 157 3/4 pounds. Professional record, 45 victories, 5 defeats. He has 32 knockouts to his credit. Former 3-time champion of the world, Simon Brown. His opponent in the red corner, wearing the gold trunks, black trim. He hails from Charleston, South Carolina, but now makes his home in Harlem, New York. He weighs in at 159 3/4 pounds. He is undefeated in 24 professional bouts. He has 19 wins by way of knockout. The pride of Harlem and the WBO middleweight champion of the world, Lonnie Bradley.
Tonight's championship fight between Lonnie Bradley and Simon Brown. 3 knockdown rule in effect, no standing 8 count. A fighter cannot be saved by the bell except in the final round. An accidental foul after 3 rounds. They will go to the scorecards. And Al, the AutoZone keys to victory.
Well, for Bradley, got a lot of side-to-side movement to Simon Brown. Shows some power early to get his respect. For Brown, he must cut this very big ring off. Must work the body, especially early, to slow Bradley down.
The WBO Middleweight Championship. That's what Simon Brown wants. That's what Lonnie Bradley has. Scheduled for 12, round number 1 underway. Bradley in the gold, Simon Brown in the black trunks with the gold and green trim. In Lonnie Bradley's sparring at Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn in New York, he sparred with Carl Grant, who is a Jamaican native, and Simon Brown is his idol. In fact, Grant wore the same colored trunks as Simon Brown to get Bradley used to it.
That is the kind of a ploy that David Wolf, the manager of Lonnie Bradley, who we'll talk a lot about during the course of this match, would use just to simulate and make his boxer feel more comfortable.
The experiences we showed you heavily in favor of Simon Brown, 313 rounds to 104. Bradley has recorded 6 first-round knockouts. Brown has recorded 7.
It is interesting to look at Simon Brown, and you see he's come up from welterweight. He was a welterweight champion, moved up to be a junior middleweight champion. Now he is a middleweight. He looks like a legitimate middleweight, though. I don't think Simon Brown looks like he's puffed up to that weight, and he's been 7-1 in middleweight bouts, so he's comfortable now at that weight.
His people say that he may start a little slow tonight, but they feel they can catch up to Bradley in a hurry.
Stop punching both of you.
Now, what are some of the things that Brown feels that he's worked on to make himself a little bit better?
Well, Simon Brown has a style that has worked for him throughout, and that is to get inside, crank up hooks, jab his way in, and then once he gets on the inside, Wesley Mouzon, his wonderful trainer, has always worked with him on throwing lots of punches and throwing good combinations, and that's what he'll want to do against Bradley.
Brown says he'll cut the ring off, but he'll do it throwing punches.
And you saw him throw the overhand right there. Bradley wants very much to establish the jab. He did that against Lonnie Beasley, and then he hurt Beasley early in that bout, had Beasley in trouble in the 3rd round, and then the 7th, thought that bout could have been stopped. Here's the jab of Bradley. It's such an important weapon for him, and he is doing what he needs to do now, which is give Brown angles, move just enough so that Brown can't corner it.
Under a minute to go in round 1. Referee is Frank Cappuccino.
That overhand right that Brown is throwing there, which is one that undid Terry Norris when they boxed years ago, and then Norris, of course, came back to avenge that loss to Brown. But it's a powerful punch, and there you see him going after it again.
The only knockout loss of Brown's career, as you chronicled in your feature, was the knockout by Vincent Petway in Maryland. Closing seconds of round number 1, scheduled for 12 as Lonnie Bradley defends his WBO middleweight title against Simon Brown. Welcome back to Reading, Pennsylvania. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Lonnie Bradley and Simon Brown embark upon round number 2 of this scheduled 12-round bout as Lonnie Bradley looks to defend his WBO middleweight championship.
Simon Brown has always had trouble with men who can move and can also have a little pop in their punches. Terry Norris, an example, and Buddy McGregor. But guys who just move, like Maurice Blocker, don't get the job done against him. You have to move, but you also have to show him that you can punch with some authority.
Lonnie Bradley, somewhat of a anonymous champion, not fighting really the big names. This is one of the biggest names that he stepped in the ring against. Why is that, Al, or why do you think that is?
David Wolf, his manager, claims it's because they've had a tough time getting those matches. 3 men were #1 contenders in the WBO, among them Raul Marquez, who they lost to, Bradley lost to in the Olympic trials in 1992. They'd love to have a match with him, but that hasn't worked out, and Wolf said he even called Marquez's dad to try and make that happen, so see if that would happen. But yeah, Bradley needs a win here against a boxer like Brown to step into perhaps matches where he can gain a little more notoriety.
Boxing writer Michael Katz from the New York Daily News had a big story about Bradley, and Wolf said that Bradley's an exile from New York. He's a New Yorker who's in exile. They haven't really gotten a sniff for Madison Square Garden as part of their resurgence of boxing, but they say they understood it because Bradley doesn't really bring a big draw or a big gate or a lot of money for an opponent.
You have to bring someone else to the dance, is what David Wolf said, and he didn't do that. Here, he is in against a quality man, a 3-time world champion, and we'll see now if Lonnie Bradley can take the next step with this. He's boxing very effectively here. It's not scintillating so far, and it hasn't turned into a thrilling match, but what Lonnie Bradley is doing is getting his game plan going, and Brown's had a little more trouble getting his started, but then that's not too shocking.
Well, Brown's people sort of expected this. A slow start.
It takes Brown a while to get that engine revved up and get his style going where he jabs his way in and then he's on top of you.
You're both tied. Both just stop punching and take a
Brown working to the body, which would be very important for him. Even though Bradley hasn't landed a large percentage of his jabs, it has kept Simon at bay.
Let him go. Look at that.
But then we saw another bout like this earlier this week where Dana Rosenblatt was controlling Vinny Pazienza and got nailed with a big overhand right.
Final seconds of round 2. Workmanlike effort from Lonnie Bradley, defending his WBO middleweight championship against Simon Brown on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Ahead of Simon Brown, that occurred in round number 1. We begin round number 3 between Lonnie Bradley and Simon Brown as Bradley defends his WBO middleweight title. That cut not causing any problems to Simon Brown at this point.
Now, I mentioned that Vinny Pazienza, of course, came through with that stunning knockout win over Dana Rosenblatt. Larry Hazard seated in the audience here. And by the way, we found out he just got engaged. Congratulations to him. He issued a fine to Vinny Pazienza of $5,000 and a 90-day suspension in New Jersey for hitting after the bout was over, which was quite blatant on Vinny's part, knocking down Tony Orlando and hitting Dana Rosenblatt when he was defenseless. And in the fine department, Rock Newman and Riddick Bowe were fined $250,000 by the New York Commission, and also the Spencer Promotions Company sanctioned and not allowed to participate in Riddick Bowe promoted bouts in New York for a time.
They'll just go to another state.
That's true.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers through round 2.
The jab, an important weapon for Bradley. Interestingly, that's not a huge edge for him. But you see, he's throwing so many more. And even just throwing the 74 has kept Simon Brown at bay. Simon's not been able to walk through that punch as much as he would like. But here, you see now a subtle change is starting to occur in this match. And this is about the time when you normally expect it from Simon Brown. He's picking up the beat, working his way inside, and look how many more punches he's throwing once he's in there.
Stop punching. Step back.
Brown was averaging 35 punches a round over the first 2. Bradley 59. That will change. Brown will start throwing more, and you can see him doing it already here in round 3.
Yeah, and he seems to be throwing his punches with a bit more authority. 1 minute to go in round 3.
They believe that Bradley's big offensive weapon is the right hand. Brown's people do.
Stop punching. Step back.
And while he's thrown it in there, he hasn't landed it with great authority thus far. There are many subplots being acted out in this bout, not the least of which is the rivalry between David Wolf, the manager of Bradley, and Don Elbaum, who now again is the manager of Simon Brown after Brown had a hiatus where he went with the Don King Productions people. Elbaum and David Wolf are about as different as two people can possibly be, and there is a rivalry between the two.
Elbaum said the best picture of the night will be the face of Dave Wolf when Simon Brown wins this fight.
Of course, that is a parochial view from him, but that's his point of view, and that's what he feels.
Well, they feel that, Brown's experience will be a key. Closing seconds of round 3, scheduled for 12, Bradley and Brown. Welcome back to Reading, Pennsylvania. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Round number 4 underway as Lonnie Bradley in the gold defends his WBO middleweight championship against Simon Brown.
Things really started to heat up in the last round as Brown worked his way a little more inside, but Bradley responded by boxing very well, working well on the inside.
Some numbers through round 3, Al.
And we see that Bradley opening up a pretty wide margin. I have him winning all 3 rounds. He is throwing more than Brown and landing more. And there's the right hand that stopped Brown in his tracks. That's what the Brown contingent was a little concerned about.
And Dave Wolf looking on anxiously. He is the manager of Lonnie Bradley.
He is a multifaceted man, was formerly a sports writer, wrote for Life magazine. He wrote one of the best sports books ever written called Foul, about Connie Hawkins, the legendary basketball player. And ironically, that's how he hooked up with Lonnie Bradley. Bradley, a terrific basketball player who played in the famous Rucker playground in the shadows of Yankee Stadium, so they share basketball in common. And David Wolf has done a good job for Bradley, as he did for Ray Boom Boom Mancini and Donnie Lalonde and others.
Yeah, Bradley from Harlem in New York, and Dave Wolf with a great rivalry with Don Elbaum, the manager of Simon Brown.
Bradley working well on the inside. Now, I don't know, though, from his standpoint, if he wants to be there. But look at him rip. But there's the Brown hook. Simon Brown's a dangerous man if you stand on the inside with him, and that's what Bradley did.
Brown's nose is bloodied here in round 4.
Lonnie Bradley has lots of confidence, but he could have too much confidence. And again, I would even hearken back to the Pazienza-Rosenblatt fight, where Dana Rosenblatt thought he had things in hand against Pazienza, and then he landed that big overhand right.
Well, if you're thinking of knockouts, Brown has 17 knockouts in the first 3 rounds. Bradley has 13 in the first 3, so they've both done a majority of their knockout work in the first 3 rounds.
And this has become an inside bout. Now, for Simon Brown, he should be happy about that. But look at the body shots that Lonnie Bradley is ripping against Simon Brown. So beware when you decide on a stereotypical game plan before a fight. If you're an announcer or a writer, don't just decide that Simon Brown has to win on the inside and is the body puncher. Lonnie Bradley is showing you he can too.
Closing seconds of round 4, scheduled for 12. Lonnie Bradley defending his WBO middleweight championship against Simon Brown on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Round number 5 begins. A cut over the left eye of Lonnie Bradley. And it's not a big cut, Al, but it's in a bad spot.
Matt Kurihara, the cut man for that corner, who is Hawaiian of Japanese ancestry, one of the fine trainers in the Far East. Ironically, David Wolf said to us this morning, Lonnie Bradley has never been cut. So we know Mac's a good cut man, but he's never had to work on Lonnie. Well, guess what? He has to work on him tonight, and that cut is not in the best spot over the left eye.
And it looked like Bradley was almost trying to fight a little southpaw to protect that cut. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with that adversity. If he's never been cut before, if he tries to get overprotective of it and gets away from his game plan.
Brown with a low blow. Now, Lonnie Bradley has boxed very effectively and won, I believe, every single round. But do not be deceived into thinking that Lonnie Bradley has total control of this fight, because he does not. Brown is in punching range. He has landed some nice shots, and he could turn this bout around at any time. Why? Because he is getting his punching distance against Bradley.
I think the only round Brown might have won, in fact, I gave it to him, was round 3. But all in all, Bradley has fought a good fight.
As well as Bradley is boxing and doing well, he is boxing Simon Brown's kind of a match. So one of those overhand rights or one of those left hooks from Brown could change things. And Brown has been able to get to the body now, which he wants to do.
Will the veteran Brown now try to work on that cut on the left eye of Bradley?
I think he's already trying to do it. And, of course, Brown very adept at using his head on the inside, which I think is probably how he got the cut on the top of the head. Nice combination work by Bradley. Bradley's making a huge mistake, though. He's squaring himself up against Brown, making himself a better target. He needs to stay sideways and box, not square himself up like he is on there on the inside.
He's almost exposing that cut.
But again, a very good round for Lonnie Bradley. You can't say he's not winning these rounds. The cut, though, is still bleeding over that left eye.
Final 30 seconds of round 5.
For a match that I believe is kind of one-sided, this is a very intriguing boxing match, because you never feel that Simon Brown is out of it here. Good tactical work, though, by Lonnie Bradley.
All right, both of you stop punching. Get back.
Referee Frank Cappuccino asked the fighters to step back. We're going to step out for a timeout. When we come back, round number 6 as Simon Brown puts the pressure on. Welcome back to Reading, Pennsylvania. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Round 6 underway. Lonnie Bradley in the gold, Simon Brown in the black trunks as Bradley looks to defend his WBO Middleweight Championship. We are outdoors at the Reading Municipal Stadium, the home of the Philadelphia Phillies AA affiliate. And baseball tonight coming up next here on ESPN. Gary Miller, your host. If you want to get caught up on all of today's Major League Baseball news, there's no better place to turn than baseball tonight coming up after ESPN's Championship Boxing.
Huge right hand by Bradley. Wes Muzan told Brown, he said, you have to stop getting hit by that right hand. Ride with it, block it, slip it, do whatever you can, but you've got to slip that punch and then throw your own right hand. You know, 17 of the 28 connects that Bradley had in the last round were jabs. And that's what the punch he's using to dominate this bout.
Al, how do you see it scored?
I have Bradley ahead winning every single round. I know a couple of the rounds were close, but I thought he handled Brown in those rounds.
I gave Brown round 3, and that's it. And that was a close round. That might have been a little bit of a gift on my part. Approaching the midway point of round 6.
Brown has been hit with some very good shots from the outside. This is a critical round, I believe, in this match. We're in the midway part. This is the time when if Simon Brown is going to make it happen, he should be beginning to make more inroads to Lonnie Bradley.
On August 15th in this baseball stadium, Simon Brown celebrated his 33rd birthday along with trainer Wesley Muzan. It wasn't Wesley's 33rd, it was his 69th, although he says he's going with 39. That's his story, and he's sticking with it.
I don't blame him. In fact, Lonnie Bradley will have a birthday on September 16th. He'll be 28 years of age. He is working well on the inside, Bradley. Better, I think, than they anticipated. Look, that nice little left hook. And he's also slipping the Brown punches better on the inside. It's very bad to think of a boxer in a very simplistic and narrow way because sometimes they'll surprise you, and that's what Bradley's doing here. He rocked Brown with that right hand.
Yeah, Brown landed some shots, but it's Bradley who's landing the more effective right hand.
Well, Brown was worried about the right hand, and this is why. He's been hurt here in round 6.
Bradley has never recorded a 6th-round knockout. Closing seconds of round 6. Lonnie Bradley doing an excellent job against Simon Brown.
Lonnie Bradley has power in the right hand. He got it off, not the way Simon Brown normally expected it to happen. He worked on the inside, then threw the right hand. They expected it to come always off the jab from the outside. Surprise, it didn't.
Round number 7 underway. Lonnie Bradley defending his WBO Middleweight Championship against Simon Brown. Glad you can join us on ESPN's Championship Boxing. If you just tuned in, Steve Little won the vacant IBC Super Middleweight Championship with a unanimous decision over Joaquin Velasquez. Al, some numbers from round 6.
Lonnie Bradley getting the job done. Interestingly, see, not a huge margin for him, but he landed by far the stronger punches and I think the cleaner punches as well. And also, those numbers an indication, Bob, that Simon Brown is not boxing that badly in this match. It's just that he can't get over the hump against Bradley.
Brown ripping off that right hand. Al, the question I pose to you, this is supposedly a coming out party for Lonnie Bradley, going against a bigger name, better competition, even though he is the WBO middleweight champion. Simon Brown at 33. Is he, we know he's past his prime, obviously, but is he a shot fighter? I mean, is Bradley this good, or is Brown, just not there?
Well, I think Simon Brown is performing pretty well tonight. Technically, he's not that far off. I think he's done some of the things he wanted to do. He doesn't look shot to me. I think part of it is Lonnie Bradley is executing his game plan very well. And you have to give him very high grades for what he's doing. But no, he's not in there against the guy that has no skills. Simon Brown looks pretty good in spots.
Well, Bradley has stuck to the game plan that they laid out for us when we spoke with the boxers today.
And even when he's deviated and gone on the inside and stayed there with Simon Brown, he's been able to work effectively. He doesn't look like a man who's lost. He looks like a guy that knows how to do that. Well trained by Bobby Cassidy, who was himself a terrific fighter.
And we have to give credit to Mac Kurihara, the cut man for Bradley, because Bradley had a cut above the left eye a few rounds ago, and that has not been a factor at all.
Brown now staying on the outside, and boy, he's not going to win this bout out there. He is letting Bradley get off first. There's the right off the jab. That's what they're really worried about, and it's starting to come for Bradley.
Another right hand. The counters from Brown, few and far between.
And now notice when Brown's on the inside, he's not even working very hard. Bradley's punches have taken their toll in this bout.
Final 10 seconds of round 7. It has been all Lonnie Bradley. A ringside seat at the Reading Municipal Baseball Stadium. That's where we are tonight on ESPN's Championship Boxing. Glad you can join us. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein. Round number 8 underway. The WBO Middleweight Championship at stake. Lonnie Bradley defending his title against Simon Brown in a fight that has been all Lonnie Bradley.
The numbers in this bout from Punch Profile shows you how well Lonnie Bradley has done. He's pulled out to a very big edge and is throwing almost twice as many punches as Brown. Simon Brown came out in this round doing something very well, jabbing his way in, but he hasn't done that so well over the last 3 or 4 rounds. Just enough movement from Bradley. And that's what you need against Brown. There's that right again. Boy, he's finding a home for it now from the outside.
Of Bradley's 19 knockouts, he does have 1 8th round knockout. Simon Brown's 32 knockouts, he has 2. I'm very impressed with the poise of Lonnie Bradley to this point.
He has not allowed himself. Oh, there's a nice half hook, half jab. Now Lonnie Bradley knows that he's got this bout in hand to some degree, and he's going to make sure that he doesn't make any bad tactical errors. His speed is impressive. He said to us today that he thought that was the difference in this bout, and by and large it has been.
Well, Bradley has been 8 or more rounds 6 times in his career. Brown has been 8 or more rounds 20 times in his career, so we'll see if experience does kick in for Simon Brown.
Very low by Simon Brown. And in the corner, David Wolf is apoplectic, yelling at Frank Cappuccino, and Frank gives Brown a very strong warning.
That word again, please?
Apoplectic. That was my word for the week.
Okay. To bring a thesaurus next week.
Sending Americans scurrying for their dictionaries.
No, probably they're just saying, what is Bernstein talking about? He's a boxing announcer.
We don't talk down to our audience, though.
They usually listen down to us.
That's true. We're trying to reach their level. Bradley staying on the outside by and large this round. And when he is on the inside, look, he works. He is not just staying in there and letting Brown have his way.
He's beating Brown at his game. Very impressive workmanlike effort for Lonnie Bradley. Good left hand from Brown. Tries to follow with a right.
He hurt Bradley.
At the end of round number 8, and Bradley is rocked. And the bell sounds. Round 8 over.
Somewhere in here,
Let's go.
maybe that left hook or that right hand, Lonnie Bradley got hurt.
Or a headbutt.
Or there was a clash of heads as well. So you take your pick, whatever it is. Bradley got hurt. Now Simon Brown knows he can hurt him. And this fight could change dramatically. We'll see.
And we talk about the veteran savvy of a Simon Brown. He will use any measure within the rules or stretching the rules a little bit to gain an advantage.
Glad you added that second part.
And a little concern in the corner of Lonnie Bradley at the end of round number 8. by his manager, David Wolf.
Well, they were concerned about a number of things here, not the least of which was the inside tactics of Simon Brown. But David Wolf would be the first to tell you, as with his corner, that they know Simon Brown's always a dangerous boxer with those hooks and those overhand rights, and that if you let him get in position to throw that punch, as Bradley did, he will hurt you.
The reason why Wolf is the manager and also listed as the chief second, because under WBO rules, only the chief second can discuss any rules infractions with the referee. And since David has the gift of gab.
There it is.
Yes, I think that's the understatement. Now, in this round, Lonnie Bradley turned the first half of this round into the Lonnie Bradley Invitational track meet, because he knows he's way ahead and he needs to clear his head in this match.
Have you given a round to Brown?
I have not, no. Including the last one, even though he landed a big punch, he was not able to follow up. And now you see Bradley starting to be a little more offensive.
It's a no-no, man.
You hear the referee, Frank Cappuccino.
Brown may win this round because Bradley has done so little offensively. Brown hasn't landed that much either, but...
Under a minute to go in round 9.
I think the jab of Brown, which you just see there, is an underused weapon, and he could use it very effectively here. Let me assure you, this fight is not over, folks. Don't go to the kitchen, get a snack, and say, well, I think Lonnie Bradley's going to win a decision. No, sir. Because Simon Brown has the potential here to hurt him, and he has the potential to make something happen. Bradley's a little slower, he's a little more tired, and he's been hurt.
Plus, our cards have Bradley so far in front. Usually the judges' cards vary quite drastically.
That's true, but in this instance, I think he's probably winning.
Final 15 seconds of round number 9. A lackluster round for both boxers. Maybe a round Simon Brown might win. This one scheduled for 12 as Bradley defends his WBO middleweight crown on ESPN's Championship Boxing. That is what is at stake tonight. The WBO championship belt in the middleweight division. Currently it belongs to Lonnie Bradley. In the gold trunks, Simon Brown, the former welterweight and junior middleweight champion of the world, would like to take Bradley's belt from Reading, Pennsylvania. So far, it has been all Lonnie Bradley. But Al, as you mentioned, despite the fact that the score may be wide in favor of Bradley, this fight is a lot closer than the score might indicate.
Well, in terms of its potential outcome, yes, because Lonnie Bradley, although now he's on his toes, looked tired in the last round, looked like a boxer that wasn't quite as sure as he was in previous rounds. Now he's starting to put some more movement, bounce into his feet, and also throwing a few more punches with authority.
As far as 10 or more rounds are concerned, Bradley has been there 4 times, Brown 18 times.
Lots of movement from Bradley. Not too many punches, but there he goes to the jab, which was a staple of his attack earlier. Brown very wild with his shots. And let's not forget, Simon Brown took a lot of punishment early in this bout. Oh, there's some beautiful body shots by Bradley. But he opened himself up to the hook and got hit with it.
He says no problem, but a lot of times that's a mechanism of defense, trying to con your opponent that you're not hurt. Midway point of round number 10.
This is a very big ring. It really looks to be over 20 feet, and that has been a big benefit to Lonnie Bradley in the course of this bout. We mentioned his basketball background. He is a terrific point guard in high school, and I said he played in the Rucker playground where many legends have played, and so you can see that nimbleness reflected in what he does in boxing.
Outstanding amateur, 3-time New York Golden Gloves champion.
Simon Brown is facing several critical rounds in his career. A loss here will make it difficult for him to get back to another championship match. He'll have to work his way back, and does he have the time to do it at the age of 33?
And you mentioned something earlier that we should reiterate for those who just joined us. It's not so much that Simon Brown doesn't have anything left, it's that Bradley has fought a very sound fight.
And the proof of that is that Brown has made a few things work. Nice right by Bradley.
Final 10 seconds of round 10. This one is scheduled for 12. Lonnie Bradley looking to defend his WBO middleweight crown against Simon Brown. Hope you're enjoying it on ESPN.
And even though Bradley has landed some big punches, he's only had one KO after the 8th round in his bout, so it's not in his makeup to go out and score knockouts late in any case. And he's not in that mode right now anyway. He's boxing, although now starting to put more punches, power punches together. He did at least toward the end of the last round. Well, you see what a big margin Lonnie Bradley has, so that's why we think he's way ahead in this bout.
Let him out, let him out, let him out.
Wesley Mouzon said before the bout that as far as he's concerned, Bradley's a good boxer puncher who can punch well with the right hand, and I think we'll have problems with Bradley early, but Simon's going to catch up with him. Well, Simon hasn't really done that. He had his moments a few rounds ago, but he has not been able to get past the early round advantage that Bradley built up. And so now it comes down, Bob, to can Simon Brown hurt Bradley again as he did a couple of rounds ago, and in this case, can he finish him?
Well, the only knockout Simon Brown has ever had this late in the fight came in the 14th round. So that tells you how long ago it was when they still were boxing 15-round championship fights.
And that was in one of the greatest matches that anyone has ever seen, his bout with Tyrone Trice. That was a tremendous match in which he won the world title. Now Brown moves to lefty. Interesting that it would come this late in the match. Let's see if it has an impact.
But Bradley moves to lefty as well.
Which is a great ploy.
Step back, both tied up.
Well, for those people who question whether Lonnie Bradley was for real, to this point, the answer is yes.
Oh, there's no question. He's shown lots of skills tonight against a veteran who came in here in good shape and has tried as much as you can try and has done some things well. Nice right by Bradley. But look how smart he is. Instead of staying there and exchanging with Brown, he says, I've done enough work. Time for me to leave. Very clever.
We come to the end of round number 11. Some of the fans chanting Simon, some chanting Lonnie to cheer on these two boxers. The 12th and final round still to come. Can Simon Brown pull out a miracle? That question will be answered after this. Papa along with Al Bernstein back in Reading, Pennsylvania. We get set for the 12th and final round. Lonnie Bradley and Simon Brown. Al, can Simon Brown pull a rabbit out of his hat?
Well, I thought I heard somebody lean in his corner and say, you win this round, you win the fight, Simon. I would be shocked at that. And I don't think Simon Brown has any grounds to believe that he was robbed if he loses this decision. I think Simon Brown needs a knockout to win this bout, and that's a pretty, and I would say that it would be very tough to argue with that. The punch profile numbers are huge in favor of Bradley.
Well, you have it 10-1. I have it 9-2 in favor of Bradley.
I just think he's dominated most of these rounds.
If you just joined us, Steve Little won the vacant IBC Super Middleweight Championship with a unanimous decision over Joaquin Velasquez. A fight much closer than the judges' scorecards. And this has been a very good fight. Lonnie Bradley stepping up in class, defending his WBO Middleweight Championship against 33-year-old Simon Brown.
And in fact, if Bradley would go on to win here, as we suspect he would, and it's been a very nice performance by him. You have to look at the middleweight division. It is waiting for someone to step up. Keith Holmes has a title. Bernard Hopkins has a title. William Joppy has a title, along with Lonnie Bradley. And what a unique concept. Wouldn't it be nice to see some of those guys box each other to see who emerges?
It would be nice.
Call me a nut, but I think that would be an interesting idea for a change in boxing. And in fact, many of them, I think, have skills that would lend themselves to a very competitive and interesting match.
Probably why it won't happen.
Precisely. But no matter for Lonnie Bradley, he has demonstrated here tonight that he's a young man with considerable ability, handling a veteran in Simon Brown who came here in very good shape and did get some things accomplished during parts of these rounds, but just couldn't get it all going at any given time to keep a momentum swing in his favor.
Let him go, Lonnie. Let him go.
Final minute 10.
Truthfully, Bob, I think both men are a little fatigued. This bout was waged at a very fast pace. Brown now is a lefty here, but I would think this is far too late to try a strategy like that.
Bradley was hurt once in this fight. There have been no knockdowns, and he has just dictated the terms from start to finish.
Now, Brown is having a pretty decent 12th round, and I probably would give him this round, but there is no conceivable way in my mind that that would allow him to win this bout. That's why Bradley is moving and boxing.
His corner is imploring him to put it on. Go for broke. But Lonnie Bradley's movement has prevented that.
Nice short right hand by Bradley.
We are approaching the final bell. Looks like Lonnie Bradley has successfully defended his WBO middleweight crown. There it is. The bell, a hug, as Bradley moved up a notch and defended his title. Well, if you're tuning in for baseball tonight here on ESPN, Gary Miller is standing by. He will bring you all of the highlights, all of the baseball news, the most comprehensive baseball show on television.